texted you out of the blue. It's like, we've got to talk about divorce. And I was probably like, what the hell is she talking about? But we kind of talked about this, I don't think maybe a year or two ago, because of, obviously personal experiences, but just there's something to be said for what at least I know is going on in my life. I've got, my network of women friends. I've got my married friends. And I've got, of my married friends, those are in fitness and those who are not in fitness. And I've just noticed that my married friends that are in fitness have experiencing a much higher rate of separation and divorce than my girlfriends who are married who are not in fitness. And so I don't want to ignore that, I guess, knowing you see a trend, you see a pattern, I think it's worth exploring. But then some questions came up, right? So is it fitness? Is it what women get from fitness? Is it a physical thing? Is it symptomatic maybe more of this age bracket? Of course, the women that I know are our age, right? 35 to, maybe 50. Is it symptomatic of this age bracket? Or is it just maybe symptomatic of the times, right? Like we're in a society, I think right now, that maybe doesn't place as much value on those types of commitments. I don't know. I just know that when I look at my network and my group of girlfriends, there's a lot going on with the fit chicks that aren't necessarily going on with, those who spend, less time in the gym, I guess is the best way to put it. So I'm just curious as to your experience, and then definitely curious to hear, I was so excited about the idea of Erica and her perspective and being in a committed, successful, marriage and what that difference might look like on that end, because clearly I don't know. Clearly I don't know.
Well, I see, because we have a lot of the same online network of women, right, through GORGO, and, it's definitely the same with that group of women too. We're seeing a lot of separations and divorces. But my personal story, when I look back through my life and all the different things, I think that fitness played a role only in that through that journey, learned who I was as a person and gained power and became a person that wouldn't settle for certain things, And so I think that's the only way it was related to fitness. I don't think that it was, I got this body, and so now I've got to get another man. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that at all.
Right.
There's so many more layers. And so I think that for me personally, it was that. And I think, and because that's my experience, that's what I think I'm seeing in other women too. But, a lot of my clients are single women who've, become single through, at the same time, same thing you're seeing as they step into their own because of fitness, maybe. I don't know. Erica, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think that's the thing to explore, because I, as a coach and a trainer to many women in fitness and nutrition through our Sisters in Shape business, it's a large enough sample to watch this play out. And what I notice is it's not so much the age, it's the timing of when this is happening that to me says there's something there. So for example, it's not like all of a sudden a year down the road, I'm hearing that they've gotten, they're thinking about getting a separation or they've gotten divorced. It's the timing of how close that is to when, as a coach or a trainer, I'm seeing they're having that breakthrough of stepping into their truest, most powerful self. So for example, if a client I feel doesn't actually, so maybe they come and they join because they've got like a weight loss goal or a body goal. If that really is like their focus and desire, I don't see this type of patterning of they're having a potential impact on a relationship. It's the clients that I see that when I see that inner transformation of them, meaning sure, they may have come with a weight loss goal, but what they actually transformed in the process was their deepening of their confidence in themselves and their knowing of themselves and their strengthening of themselves. Those are the clients that I've seen the patterning that soon, in a fairly short order, they start having deeper questionings about either relationships or jobs, like a bigger aspects of their life. And obviously a relationship is such a big aspect of the life. And so it talks to what Val was saying, is it's those people, because fitness can be the thing to unlock somebody's truest, strongest self, version of themselves. And that's a really transformative moment for somebody. And so then the question then becomes, can their marriage handle that transformation at that deep of level? Mm-hmm. And does their partner still be in resonance? And is that still the right match? Is our partner still the right match for that person's truest, strongest version of themselves?
That there's so many more layers to this, that that fitness can be that catalyst to these life-changing moments. I'm one, and we talk a lot about this, collectively, and I think individually, about how fitness, it really is a transformation that starts from the inside. I've always said, what's my saying? With every rep, you're building more than muscle. You're building a strength of character. You're building a sense of self. You're building self-discipline. And those things do end up translating and manifesting themselves in different aspects of your life. Of course, your relationship that you're in, because it's such a huge part of your life. And there's no choice but to grow. There's no choice but to evolve. There's no choice but to, become hopefully what is a better version of yourself. And whether or not your partner. And so here is I guess kind of where my rub is, and where I get kind of stuck does it come down to whose responsibility is it at that point in the relationship? When you've experienced this growth, is it that your partner, is the question, can your partner evolve with you? Can they identify with and have a connection with the new you? Or is it for, I guess, us as the fit chicks to reach out more, stay committed? I'm not sure what the language is, but I mean, is there more responsibility on the person who's doing the changing, who's voluntarily kind of walking into this new skin, if you will? And I guess that's kind of where I get stuck, and has been hard for me personally. And when I speak to women, and the women that I know that are fit chicks that are going through these separations, is whose responsibility is it? Where do you go from there? We've acknowledged this change, and again, hopefully it's a good one, but then what? Where does that conversation pick up, and with whom?
Well, I think it's just exposing problems that were already there,
That's probably true.
And it, in a healthy, good relationship, that those would just, be conversations that you would have, I think Erica's probably the best one to answer that, because she's gone through a transformation. And Tim's amazing. He comes to camp and supports us all, not only Erica, but
I know he's kind of camp husband, right?
Yeah. So my actual personal story is 8 years ago when I started on my fitness journey, which also, like Val's, was a true uncovering of my strongest, most authentic, real version of myself. It actually strengthened my marriage. It actually strengthened my relationship. And I think, I don't want to make it sound like it was all roses, because when this first was happening, I remember feeling like he was like, "You're changing and I'm not sure I like it." And I'm like, too bad, I'm doing this anyways. But that we're talking with just in a matter of months from there, he could see how much happier I was, and was there for my number one fan. So it was never either of our responsibilities. It was just how we would choose to support each other, regardless of what that was, right? And that would be the theme of what I think one of the differences is on the ones that I see their relationships get stronger, or the ones that don't make it, is that's an actual aspect of the relationship that support is desired to be there. I see I see similarities of my husband and other husbands who are like in the front row cheering on their spouse, compared to the ones that I don't see them, right? They're continuing that battle behind the scenes. But at the same time, I see clients who went through a similar transformation where their husbands are there and they are like freaking losing their mind. They are so excited for their wife on stage with this transformation. That's like, take your language of responsibility. Like, that doesn't even enter that type of relationship, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like
you look emotional.
I'm sitting here thinking like I'm getting a little teary-eyed because I think you're absolutely right. It's symptomatic of the relationship and whatever you've built that on. And it's like that saying, the way you do one thing is how you do everything. I guess it's the same in the relationship. You know, how you approach one change or difference or event in a relationship is how you probably approach them all. So whether it was fitness or you decided to start, you know, building model cars, I don't know, you know, your spouse is probably going to respond similarly in terms of their support or lack thereof.
But the difference between model cars and what we're talking about is the magnitude of importance and the truest nature of who you are to the core.
Yeah.
Makes it so that it forces a decision, it forces a hard look at something that otherwise may never have come there, right? So that is, I think there is something to fitness because it can be so transformative to a core, huge level that it forces things to like a harder divide in a road, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Val?
You know, people are invested in you staying the same. And so if you got in a relationship as a very different person, a very young person, they, you know, even maybe we're not even talking about a spouse right now, but just friends, family, people in your life are going to resist you changing, you know. And you know, you mentioned Tim kind of resisted a little bit, but what I see from you and Tim from afar is that Tim is also the kind of guy that is not threatened by a powerful woman. You know, he's just like, go girl, do it, you know, and he's there rooting you on. And I think that's the kind of man that a strong, powerful woman needs, you know. But if you got in a relationship with somebody at a really young age that's like, you know, with his thumb on you or not elevating you to the level you want to be at, then that's going to be some problems. And I never, you know, I have a lot of people come to me because you know, people know that I'm divorced and been through a lot of stuff. They'll talk to me when they're having problems in their relationship. And I think people expect that I'm going to say, get a divorce. You deserve better, you know, but I'm always like, make it work. You know, if you love them at all, you can make it work, because it is hard as hell to go to be on your own. It is not for the faint of heart. I don't care how tough of a fit chick you are. It's not for the faint of heart, right? So I think that any issue in marriage is worth going to therapy and addressing and working it out. And, you know, the man's got to be involved in that too. He's got to be open to being with a powerful woman that's going to say, I'm doing this. I would love for you to come along with me. I'd love for you to cheer on the sidelines if that's what you want to do, but I'm going to do this. Yeah. And I need you not to be threatened. You know, I need you to help, you know, prep my food and, you know, just be happy that I'm, you know, doing what I'm doing. And one other thought I had is another thing, and I mentioned before, I really don't think fitness was the thing in my personal experience, but I do think that I stepped into fitness to fill a void in an already really difficult situation. Mm. You know, like that was the thing that I was, you know, kind of in a dark place, and I needed something. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom with, you know, 3 babies, 1 on the way, you know, just craziness going on. And that's when I reached to fitness. So I think it's kind of a timing thing maybe for some people too. It's just like the last straw. Okay, let me work on me a little bit. That'll fix my marriage. That'll fix my other issues. And I don't know.
I was just looking to lose the baby weight. All I wanted was a flat stomach. And, you know, I wanted abs. It's like, yeah, a lot of the women that come to us initially, they just want, you know, abs and a big butt. And that's kind of what I was going for. But halfway through, or a year or so in, I really became sensitive and keenly aware of how I was changing, and a strength that I was developing. Like I said, you know, I say this all the time: strong backs don't break, and I mean that from a physical and emotional perspective. But when I think about, I met my husband when I was 24 years old, and my ex-husband is 11 years older than I am. So that was probably pretty interesting for him to sit back and watch me go, just in general, from being a young woman. I mean, think about your mentality. At least mine was pretty, you know, kind of crazy at 24, to finding fitness around 30. How old was I? I was 30. I was in my early 30s. So that in and of itself is a crazy transition. And then on top of that, you add this strength of character that I was developing. And so, yeah, it was probably the timing, as you were saying, Erica, that started a lot of this. But I can't say that he was, and I don't necessarily want to make this about him, or, you know, because my ex-husband and the father of my kids is a great guy, but this was definitely, he was not the kind of guy that was, you know, the cheerleader from the sidelines, you know, type of person. And I see that reflected, though, in more areas of our relationship, or of our previous relationship, than just fitness. And so, you know, when I think about other aspects, I see that mirrored really, really clearly, and how we responded to the fitness transformation. I remember that feeling and having to make that decision. I remember many instances actually wondering, you know, what to do and if this was the right decision to make. And honestly, drawing on experiences that I had gone through in fitness to kind of help fill in those answers. You know, am I strong enough? Can I do this? You know, what's going to happen to me? And there's experiences that I can think of very, very specifically in fitness, whether it was a competition that I went to by myself, whether it was figuring out how to pay for coaching and food, whether it was, you know, just different things that I figured out through fitness informed my answers on whether or not I could do this. I don't know. I guess there's no point in looking back, but I really don't know how different that would have ended up had I never found fitness. I really don't. I don't know what I would have drawn on. I don't know what would have informed me, what I would have looked to.
And that's kind of the scary thing, is if the women that don't ever find their true selves, they don't ever find something that empowers them to really be who they are, they're, you know, sadly maybe staying in really bad situations, you know. So as negative as it can be, it's also really amazing to see women really not settling, you know, in some really tough situations. You know, like I said, none of us are advocates for divorce, but I'm also not a advocate to see people like waste their life. You know, we've got one life, you know, and everybody's got these amazing gifts and talents, and we're connected with so many women that fitness draws that out of, you know, and so that's amazing to watch. And so sometimes that means maybe stepping into a new phase in their life, you know, and we happen to be experiencing that with a lot of women. So
we are.
To make it, you know, I wanted to make sure it's like there was like parts that weren't so perfect. Like it was almost like you could take some of Val's words, and that was the conversation. It was like literally crying, being like, well, I love you, but I'm going to do this anyways. And I wish you were my cheerleader. And right now you can't be, but this is what I'm going to do. And this is what this is what I want. And I wish you would be my cheerleader. I know those exact words came out of my mouth with a lot of tears.
Yeah.
And, you know what, like, I can't even, you know, like, I can't even imagine what it would be like for that to have gone on and not resolved itself. And that's what you know, that's what your experience was, because I mean, it didn't go on for very long. We're talking a matter of months, but essentially, like, I don't even know what that would mean. Right. And I really feel blessed that wasn't the case, but I really think it wouldn't have mattered if I had decided I wanted to move to Germany and do this thing because this was the most important thing. Like, to me, it's got to be big because, like, transformative. But I really do think that that's the type of relationship that would have made it through that too, right? And so it was really looking at it, you know, if you were to have something really tough in your family, like the death of a parent, or something really tragic happened in your life, like all those big things can put your marriage to the absolute test. And I think there aren't very many marriages in life that don't get that test along the way. I actually think it's kind of sad when, you know, we say like, what would happen if fitness didn't come into, you know, your life or some of the people's lives that I know, or my own life. So I'll just say that because I want to speak for other people. But you know what I think I would have been less of me in my whole life. And wow, right? Like, wow, I would have been less of me my whole life, I think.
I just know for anyone who does get to see this, I hope that they're not experiencing any shame over the decision to allow themselves, like Erica was saying, to be their best selves, to be the best, most happy, you know, them that they could be, regardless of what brought that on, you know, allow themselves to be authentic.
Because I think that's, if I think of the word shame, like the shame and how you used it, Cassandra, I think for me what that is really hitting at is it's hitting a kind of a deep nerve around like, who am I to care more about myself than my marriage? And like, who are you not to care about yourself? Right? Like, these things don't have to be exclusive from each other, but I think that's where the shame or the characteristic comes from. It's like caring about yourself in general in many parts of our culture has a selfish connotation to it. So this is just like selfish to the extreme connotation. I think that feeds into that insecurity of like, caring for yourself and actually looking after yourself is not selfish. You actually don't even get to even be yourself if you're not caring for yourself and being able to really pour your whole self into the world, right? But I think that the way that you're describing it to me, kind of the reason why it probably feels so sensitive to people is because it's hitting on that self-worth, what selfishness is versus owning yourself and your life and caring about yourself as much as you care about everybody else.
Right. No, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. As soon as you said that, I felt that. So I know you hit the nail on the head. That was good.
What do you think, if you're somebody who's listening to this and is kind of maybe in like a rough patch with their marriage and into fitness, like what would you want to say to somebody like that? Because those are the type of people that would listen to this.
Yeah, I think I would say, and not just for people in fitness, but kind of like what you did with Tim, communicate, say what you need, you know, think really hard about what you're not willing to settle for anymore, and communicate that, you know. And I think that was part of my problem throughout. And I think I see this in a lot of other women too. We care for the kids. We do what we need to do. We do all these expectations, and we never really firmly set expectations for what we need. You know, we're not firm about that. And so I think just saying, look, I'm a different person. I'm growing, and I would love for you to grow with me and be involved in this with me. And I think it just starts there, you know. You just have to have that hard conversation. And if they're not willing to cross over the line with you, then you have other things to think about. But you've just got to start with, you know, just open, honest conversation.
I agree. Everything Val just said. And that you're communicating the value that this is bringing to you, and then therefore your role as the spouse, so as the wife and as the mother, and maybe as an employee of somebody, that there's you're growing as a person, but you're happier. You are, as you keep saying, your more authentic self, your best self. And there's value in that for you. I mean, I guess kind of, I don't want to think of it as a sales pitch, but just make sure it's clear that in that communication, in that hard conversation, it's not just that I'm growing and that I'm receiving all of these things, but when I do this, here's how it, feeds you. Here's how it helps our family grow. Here's how it benefits us all. I think when they get to see how they are involved in this evolution, how the evolution, I guess, kind of benefits them. And I don't like using that word, but I can't think of another way of putting it. But when the bigger picture is understood, I guess, when you can step away from the angst of that of being so intimately involved, and you can rise up, to that 50,000 foot level and see kind of the big picture. My wife is becoming beautiful. My wife is strong. My wife is amazing. Look at what my sons get to experience. Look at what my kids get to experience. If he can look at it from that perspective, how do you argue with that? So that's what I would say is just, try and create that bigger picture maybe.
And from somebody who sits on like the outside watching clients do this or friends go through this. And sometimes I feel like it comes down, like there's this like question that I'm seeing it coming down to people like that is the pull is kind of like the crux of this. And it's, can you live with not being a strong, if you're having to choose to be living with yourself not as a strong woman or having to give that up, that's the thing I find that's where the fraying and the shattering comes for me, my point of view of the marriage, because the person is being forced to choose to be the strong woman that they truly are or not be to save their marriage. And those are the ones, if that person gets to that point where they have to make that choice, that's when I see the marriages come apart. Like if you're sitting there and you're kind of like nodding your head being like, I feel I am like up against having to make that choice, go real deep with that, because that's what I know, client and friend or whatever who has gone through that depth of transformation and had to ask herself that, and the clear answer was like, yeah, we can have a rough moment, but I'm not having to choose between completely giving up myself as a strong woman or not to save this marriage. Really go deep on that if that's a resonant question that you're kind of looking at.
Yeah, but I remember one thing that kept ringing through my head as I was going through this, and friends and family were checking in on me. I kept saying, I'm not gonna die. Like, this sucks, don't get me wrong, but no one's dying here. Like, you're gonna be okay. At the end of the day, women, for those who are listening, you're going to be okay with whatever ends up happening. You really do. It's never too late. Even if it's never too late. Whether you divorce, you stay in the relationship, there's literally always tomorrow. You can always wake up and make a new decision, and everything is going to be okay. This is not going to kill you. And that thought, those literal thoughts really kept me going through a lot of the tougher times.